What are young people doing in church bands that we can't do at the console? You know, that instrument is the ultimate synthesizer. When you think about it, the organ is the ultimate synthesizer. So, I don't want to hold these wonderful people hostage here. So let's consider instruments and how we need to be open-minded about using them. But I am suggesting we need to learn to improvise, learn to arrange, learn to listen and accompany congregational hymns effectively. We need to be cheerleaders with our instruments. We need to be cheerleaders to our congregations at the organ, not unlike an old-fashioned song leader. That's what I was trying to do out there. You know, I come from Moody Bible Institute, where we have a history of song leaders. Irish Sankey, P.P. Bliss, they traveled with D.L. Moody on his evangelistic crusades all around the world. And Moody hired these men because he knew the power of a song leader to get people to sing and to get them to respond to the gospel message. And that's what I think we need to be as organists. Song leaders, in fact, gospel song leaders, old-fashioned song leaders, whatever the gospel happens to be that you're using. LBW, 1982, the Baptist hymnal, worship and service, you name it. But we need to be secure with our organ skills, with our voice. You know, I'm using my voice a lot. I'm trying to get the people to sing. This imaginary congregation, I wish those pews were full today. And then you could hear, then you could see the response. You could hear the differences. When we speak clearly with our voice, when we sing with confidence, we need to be enthusiastic, because enthusiasm builds confidence. And especially with young people. You know, if you have somebody in your band, or your groups, in your church that is a young flautist, let's say, not as good as Kim is, but they're playing, just beginning to play in the elementary school band. And mother thinks that they're very good. And you say, well, let me hear her play. And she comes in and she's got kind of like a fourth grade level of flute playing. I'm sorry I can't use you. We've got this wonderful flautist, Kim, and she'll take up the whole flute section. We had 6 of your daughter. She couldn't make up for Kim. I think we're going to be going to another church where they have an orchestra of kids, a youth orchestra. And I know that my daughter is going to be welcomed in that group. You have to be encouraging, build enthusiasm. We need to have a desire to communicate, especially with the people in our pews, about singing, about playing instruments, to be a teacher, to be a model with our body language. You know, we don't have much to do sitting on the bench, but we can actually play with confidence, right? That's body language. Isn't the way we actually play, is body language. And people can react to the way we play. That is a response from the congregation with their voices singing to the actual way that we sing. But using instruments like this, I think we need to be open-minded to using various sounds. We've got this wonderful trio here, but what if it was a brass trio? What if it was a woodwind trio? What if it was an accordion trio? What if they were all accordions? You say, but we don't use accordions in church. That's what you think. We have to be open-minded. We have to ask all kinds of questions. Why don't we use an accordion in church? There are wonderful Christians that play accordion. I'm not suggesting we do use accordions because it's not part of our tradition, right? But there may be an accordion church somewhere. And so we're going to turn somebody away because this is the only place where they can hear the gospel. No, you can take your accordion and go down to visit Christian Science Church down around the corner. You can play there. But getting back to our hymnal now, we need to ask all of these questions about the melody so we can place it in time and space, function and sound, and propose appropriate settings or scenarios for the melody. When I come to a hymn book page, like I asked this trio to do, they didn't have an opportunity to imagine its original setting. I just asked them to go and play. Wham, they did. Now, I don't know how much time you have pre-service to plan. Hopefully you have more than the day to do it, or more than an hour. You come to church Sunday morning, just open the bulletin and say, oh boy. Okay. No, hopefully you've got service music planned and hymns a couple of weeks in advance so you know exactly what you're doing. But when you open the hymn book, you say, you ask this hymn page, you ask the hymn, who performed you first? When were you first performed? Where were you performed first? Why were you performed first? How were you performed? So we can and we should do this pre-service planning even away from the console. This is paper. It's pencil. You can write on the page. And you can keep track of the page notes. This is a classic hymn. This is the date. This is the Mozart style. Mozart will be hymn number 365. All the things we said about pencil. Things we need to remember, though, we're talking about melody only. There it is. Got it. Just remember, pianos. Do you have a piano here, Dave?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Pianos, wherever it is, and organs were built for what? Harmony. Right? How much harmony can you play on that, Kim?
Myself?
Now, I know you can play multiphonics. You can do multiple pitches simultaneously. But you're a melody instrument, aren't you?
Yeah.
Right. But Matt and Jay, they can do harmonies. They can do double stops, quadruple stop, triple stop, whatever. They have the ability to play harmony. It's not always easy to do, and they always like plan those things out in advance. They have to do it. But they're not known as harmony instruments. But the keyboards are harmony instruments, which means that we're talking about only melody. If you're looking for variety and ideas for hymn singing, don't rush out and find as many harmonizations of the first hymn as you can. I've got a collection of hymn books. And for Italian hymn, for instance, I can find maybe a dozen different harmonizations of Italian hymn. So I make photocopies of 6 of them, and I put them in my materials. I play the first version for stanza 1, the second version for stanza 2, the first version for stanza 3, and then maybe really we do a harmonization for stanza 4. What's that say about melody? Nobody can sing, because I've confused everybody out there. In fact, this harmonization is confusing for those that know a standard harmonization for Come Thou Almighty King, right? You were singing parts, and the parts don't normally follow the ones that you normally sing, right? So if you were to take this page, 365, to your church, which has a different hymnal, different harmonization, and play this harmonization, what would the congregation do? They're not going to sing parts. They may sing melody. And no multiple harmonizations are going to improve congregational singing. As much as you want to impress them with your ability to find and play those harmonizations, they're not going to sing any better. So as we think about accompanying instruments, remember that human voices want to sing melodies. And counterpoint is the natural extension of melody. Counterpoint. So today I want to explore some together ideas about using instruments, how we can creatively use instruments, whether it's a trombone, a trumpet, or whatever.
Sure.
And hopefully we can achieve these with a minimum of work, a maximum of creativity. Let's take a break and come back. It's already 10:30. We're going to 1:30, is that right, Dave?
Noon.
2? Yeah, we're going to 2 o'clock today.
We were thinking about 3. It was actually 3:15 originally, but
3,
no.
Right. Okay, so
12 noon's fine.
okay, we come back here at 11. It's 10:30 now.
Yeah, maybe 10-minute break.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, 10-minute break. We'll come back. you what I call voicing. And we just talked about the fact that each one of you use various registrations when you play hymns, obviously, but in a broad sense, we are voicing the hymns. Voices, human voices, soprano, altos, tenors, and bass. There are first, second, violin, viola, cello, and double bass, whatever. Voicing. So we've already talked about being a piston-specific organist. You know, this is my hymn piston, this is my whatever. One for loud and one for communion. What about the person in the pew? Now, any congregation could exchange voice parts. Obviously, anybody can be singing melody at any time, whether they're an alto or tenor or bass. So at any time, the men could be singing the melody, or the altos could be singing melody. Even the sopranos could sing something other than the melody. So there are descant parts, in fact, written in a lot of hymn books that sopranos can sing. It's wonderful when you find somebody in the congregation, besides the choir member, the best soprano in the choir, who's singing a descant. Sopranos could sing a tenor part. I was in a congregation just this summer, and somebody behind me was singing, their soprano voice was singing tenor. It was glorious, because the tenor actually is above the soprano line. If they sing it in their register of the soprano range, the tenor actually is an octave higher, which is higher than the normal soprano part. So altos could sing the tenor if they've got a fairly mezzo range register, or even altos can sing a bass part. So there are all kinds of possibilities, and I call this voicing when we want to do arranging or orchestration of hymns. You know, composers of any medium, whether it's choral or instrumental music, are all the time voicing. They make decisions before they write any note. Who's going to play the melody? Who's going to play the counterpoint? And so those decisions are pre-composition. Before any notes are written, pre-compositional things happen for us whenever we're practicing for Sunday morning. And one of the advantages of having strophic music, strophic meaning we've got 4 stanzas, 3 stanzas, 4 stanzas, those are strophes. Each one of those stanzas is that each stanza could be voiced. And I'm not talking about using a loud and a soft and a reeds and no mixtures, those kinds of registrations, but I'm talking about how we can use instruments. We can do those things at the console, which are always effective and important to do too, just to give variety in the congregation hymns. But when we ever get instrumentalists as fine as these, or even amateurs going, we need to make voicing decisions. And it's not just simple, like I said before, flute, flute, oboe, clarinet, bassoon, if we have those instruments. Or first, second, cello, viola, whatever. Or trumpet, trombone, horn, tuba, those obvious, mindless, mechanical decisions. But many times the way we make decisions is looking at the words. And so we started this entire day with one word. Remember what the word was? Come. Right. What does that say? Who can play a come? Who's the instrument that plays come? You say, that's too far-fetched. I don't have that time to do. I've got to get somebody, I've got to get some notes down. Come. Who plays a good come? Does a trumpet play a come? What French horn does a trumpet? Well, what is the nature of a trumpet come? It's going to break the window back there, a glorious stained glass window. What is a trombone come? Now, trumpets and trombones are cylindrical bore instruments. They are very focused. The French horn and the tuba are conical bore. We mean conical would be like an ice cone. They're billed as cones. But the trumpet and the trombone are cylindrical, like a pipe. And so it's a difference in the timbre of the instrument. If you use a trumpet, you've got to think about in your face. If you use a trombone, you've got to think about tenor in your face. You think about French horn, you think about the round sound that envelops everybody. Or tuba, or euphonium, if you've got baritone instruments. Those are